Hey everyone, hope you're all well and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going to work on our glass section and we're going to pour the first layer of resin on the wooden panel. First off, we're starting with sketching our design on the wooden panel. Now this is going to be very rough. We're just trying to estimate where the lines and the glass sections are going to go at, so just rough lines, nothing too detailed. And as for sketching, you can use a pencil, but try to keep it as light as possible. If not, especially when using clear glass, I would definitely recommend using a marker of the same color of the edge you're going to make. So we're going to do gold edges around the crystals, and that's why I used a gold marker to outline my crystal edge. Otherwise, try to not use a pencil because it will leave marks over there. After you outline where your crystals are going to go, we're gonna start placing the crushed glass pieces and then the crystals. So the first thing you're gonna do is place the crystal or the glass chips on the wooden panel directly inside the crystal section you're planning to draw. And on the edges, I'm using a hot silicone to stick the glass chips to the edges because they tend to fall down. Even when you pour resin, they will fall down, and the edges, oftentimes if you don't do this trick, they will be left empty and that will not look very nice. So before I start pouring any resin, I would just use hot silicone to stick some of the chips, the glass chips, on the edges. And then you can later permanently attach them using resin. So it was quite difficult to add those glass chips to the wooden panel, especially that it's 12 by 10 inches piece, so it's quite small, and the glass chips are kind of medium to large size. They are not as small. They actually do contain large pieces, so if you're working on a small piece like this, try to take the larger pieces out and keep the tiny ones. They will look more pleasant. And I try to use a brush to place them around in my hand at the same time, so do whatever that you're comfortable with. For the glass, I'm starting with clear glass chips, and then I will add other colors to add some contrast between the crystal points and the clear glass chips. Right? So it's always important that you do add other colors to add some contrast to your crystal sections and general work. The next thing, I'm using hot silicone to stick my natural crystal points on the wooden panel. Now, hot silicone is really great to shape and place your crystal points, create clusters and different shapes and stuff like that, but they can pretty much be taken off, so I use resin afterwards to permanently secure these crystals and the glass chips. So here I'm just placing them in a way to build a simple classic crystal cluster, just like a flower shape or something like that, and I'm using different sizes of the crystal points, but you can absolutely do any kind of style that you want with the crystals, and that's really up to you. And at this point, I'm adding a different color of the glass chips to add some contrast to the crystal section. And be sure that you can add more than one color or any of the colors that you want. And at this point, the crystal section is all done and it's ready for some resin. Okay, so it's all done. Now we're gonna start measuring and mixing the resin for the first pour. Once more, make sure that you're wearing your protective tools like a respiratory mask, goggles if possible, and gloves. Also, make sure that you're working in a well-ventilated area and you're working away from children, pets, and vulnerable individuals. For this first pour, I'm using a regular 1:1 ratio epoxy resin for arts application. I've mixed 50 by 50 milliliters of part A by part B, equaling in total to 100 milliliters of epoxy resin. And I'm working on a 12 by 10 inches wooden panel. Again, make sure that your measurements are as accurate as possible and that you mix your resin very well so that the surface of your resin cures well without any problems or issues. And bubbles for this application is something that you don't need to worry about because we can easily get rid of them using a torch. And we're doing it on a flat surface. So no thickness, just a tiny bit. Once your resin has been mixed, it's time to sprinkle some resin on top of the glass section to permanently secure them. So I do that on top of the glass chips and in between the crystal points so that they don't fall off once later on. And for this, I only use clear epoxy resin on top of the glass section, so no pigment is being added. Once the glass sections has been covered with resin, now it's time to start mixing the colors for the first layer on the wooden panel. So first I'm gonna start with mixing the gold pigment batter to create the golden edge around the crystal sections. In a paper cup, silicone cup, or plastic cup, add just a little bit of resin, and then we're gonna add the pigment powder. Not a lot of it, just a little bit, and we're gonna mix that in. Now the golden pigment powder I'm showing you here is found anywhere and everywhere, and it's something that you can use, and you can use any golden tone that you want, but I did change up the tone a little bit from the one you're seeing right now. And unfortunately I will not be showing you how I did change that tone because we already have a course related to this topic on our social media. You can check the links for the course to see how you can make the different golden tones and the perfect golden tone for your own artworks. Let us know if you're interested or check the links on our social media accounts. Once your golden pigment powder is mixed with resin, now it's time to apply the first geode line around your crystal edge, and that is the gold. So I'm pouring the first geode line directly out of the cup around the crystal edge, and I'll go on top of the crystals to cover up the marker lines as well. You can as well use a wooden stick or other kind of tool to apply the geode lines. For me, I sometimes do it like this, and other times I can do it using a wooden sticks, whatever I feel comfortable, most comfortable with. And here I'm adding the gold in between the crystal points to hide the silicone and to add some contrast. It also looks very nice. Once that's done, I'm using little heat to let the metallic particles rise to the surface, creating a much more saturated metallic surface to the golden geode line. You can get rid of bubbles too.